योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम् मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रबलं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानुतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर् गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरिः ओम्. In the previous session, we looked at Sutra 4.23. Drashtru Drishyoparaktam Chittam Sarvartham. So that was Sutra 4.23. And in that, we saw the characterization of Chitta as Sarvartha. It means it has the ability to cognize everything, come in contact with everything, and not only everything in creation, but also it is influenced by the Purusha, and that influence falls on the Chitta. So therefore, it is Sarvartha, because on one side it has the Purusha, on the other side there is the creation. So now the question that Vyasa puts is, Kutaschyetat? Okay, how does this come about? How do we, on what basis sort of do we say that? Because the discussion in question is also about the establishing why there is the entity of Purusha, why Chitta itself cannot be the cognizer. And there is also a discussion of the various other conceptions of Chitta in the Buddhist points of view, etc. The momentary flow of Chittas and so on that we have seen. So here, today we'll start with Sutra 4.24, where that aspect, that part of the discussion sort of comes to a conclusion with this Sutra 4.24, because all aspects will get dealt with. So the Sutra 4.24 says, tadasaṅkhyeyavāsanābhiścitramapi parārthaṃ saṃhatyakāritvāt. So the point being made in this sutra is, okay, we have seen Chitta, it is Sarvartha, so it has a exalted capability, it can know everything, it has the influence of Purusha and so on. Having said all that, it is still Parārtha. All its functioning or activity and so on is for another entity, namely the Purusha. As we have seen, Chitta is seen as a material entity made up of the same sattva raja tamo gunas as Prakriti is. So it is not a conscious self-aware entity. So it is Jada, which means not conscious, not self-aware, not sentient. Whereas Purusha is consciousness, is self-awareness and so on. So the Chitta is Parārthaṃ. It is for something else. It does not act for itself. All its functioning is meant for something else. And like we have seen, Chitta has been described as Swam Bhavati Purushasya Swaminaha. So the Purusha is the Swami, the Lord, and Chitta is like the property, the Swam. So here it is established through a process of logical inference as to why the Chitta is considered as being activated and functioning from something else. And that is because that is Chitta, asaṅkhyeyavāsanābhihi chitram api. So the chitta has a variegated kind of form, or it is because it is constituted by innumerable vasanas of various kinds. And we have seen what is vasana. We have seen vasana as the impressions left behind by bhoga. But more broadly, vasana, you can say there's a karma vasana and a bhoga vasana. So it also refers to samskaras here. So there are, in English, it's usually referred to as subliminal impressions, which means whenever there is a vritti, a chitta vritti, or any state of the chitta, a corresponding samskara gets deposited, so to speak, in the chitta. So whenever there is any action karma, or whenever there is any experience bhoga, there is a corresponding vasana, the impression left behind in the chitta. And now, because again, as we have seen, the chitta purushayoho anadi sambandha, from time immemorial, there is a beginningless relationship between purusha and its chitta. There is an accumulation of vasanas from time immemorial. Therefore, the vasanas are innumerable and are of various kinds. Therefore, asaṅkheya means innumerable. Vasanabhi, by the vasanas. Chitramapi. Chitram refers to its form as of non-uniform or variegated condition. Because each vasana is of a different kind. Chitta is variegated, that is chitram. It is parārthaṃ. It is for something else. Saṃhatyakāritvāt. Because by its very nature, like you have seen, chitta is built out of, so to speak, all the gunas and particularly constituted of all these vasanas. It is a saṃhatyakāri, means it is made up of parts. It is built. It is one thing, one entity, but made up of several parts. That then each part acts along with all the other parts, acting together. So this is, in some sense, we refer to it as a system having parts. So because it is like a system having multiple parts that are put together and functioning together, therefore it is parārthaṃ. It is for something else. So that is Sutra 4.24. And then we will see it in more detail when we look at the Bhashya. Now on the Sutra itself, the text Tattva Vaisharadi slightly further elaborates, so I'll just read it out. Yathapi asaṅkheyaः karmavasanaः kleshavasanaश्च chittam eva adhisherate natu purusham तथा च वासनाधीना विपाकाः चित्ताश्रयतयः तया चित्तस्य भोक्तृताम् आवहन्ति भोक्तुः अर्थे च भोग्यम् इति सर्वं चित्तार्थं प्राप्तम्. So what this line is elaborating on the question or the doubt that may be in someone's mind, which this sutra is addressing. And the doubt is, yatapi asaṅkheyaः karmavasana kleshavasana. So all the vasanas coming from karma, klesha and the vipaka, the fruition or the experience, they are all in the chitta. And therefore, just like karma vasana, klesha vasana is there, the bhoga vasana or the vipaka vasana are also there. Then, just like the chitta is a bhogya, that is something that can be experienced, but it can also be the bhokta. So the bhoktrutam avahanti. It can also play the role of the bhokta because everything is in the chitta after all. Then, we could just consider chitta as the bhokta also. Bhoktur arthecha bhogyam iti sarvam chittartham praptam. Everything is for the chitta, by the chitta. Then why not just say, okay, everything is in the chitta, and why is there a purusha at all? So someone may question that, and that is the background in which this sutra comes as the saṃhatyakāritvāt, because it is made up of multiple things. And we'll see how this anumana works, or this inference works. But because of this nature of chitta, that it is made up of many vasanas and multiple things acting together, therefore it has to be parārtha, it has to be for something else. So that is Sutra 4.24, and we'll be seeing the Bhashya next.
So the Sutra should be understood that the counter position, Patanjali is actually encountering an opponent, and that is the Buddhistic philosophers. And that's why the Sutra has a purport here. Otherwise, for the theistic minded people, we don't see much purport in the Sutra here. But we should know that historically, Patanjali is encountering Buddhist philosophy of momentarism and ātmabhāvabhāvanāvinivṛttiḥ. Many of us do not know today that Buddhistic philosophy is one which doesn't accept entity of Atma as a metaphysical principle which is immutable, eternal, permanent. On the other hand, they have philosophy of momentarism. Nothing is permanent, everything is momentary. Kshanikavada, Shunyavada. So, therefore, the sutra has importance. Now, because they do not accept the entity of spiritual entity, metaphysical spiritual entity of Purusha, which is permanent according to the Vedic philosophers, immutable and eternal, beginningless, timeless. So that's why this sutra has an importance. If we keep the antagonizers at sight, otherwise we don't find much importance to the sutras which have come to refute the Buddhism. So they postulate that chitta itself is everything. Now Patanjali tells us here in the previous sutra that chitta is sarvartham. It is both for knowing the material realm of creation and transcendent transmaterial realm of creation. That is Purusha. So here it has been said that this chitta is constituted primarily because of asankhya vasana, countless vasanas. As just now you heard karma vasana, phala vasana, klesha vasana. Thus all the various kinds of vasanas, it is the locus for all vasanas. And therefore it is vichitram, it is variegated, but at the same time it is parārthaṃ. It is meant for someone else. Unlike the Buddhist philosophers, do not accept any other entity apart from the chitta itself in their Vijñānavada, in their panpsychism. So it is not meant for someone else, but it is meant for itself according to them. Because there's nothing else apart from that exists. Nothing apart from chitta exists. That's why they have panpsychistic postulations. But it is parārthaṃ. It is meant for someone else. And that someone else is obviously Purusha Tattva, Atma Tattva. And it is someone else for another reason, because it is the same assembly of so many things. Like Purusha, the chitta is also timeless. Chitta is also beginningless. But it is for the other one. And the other one is Purusha. And therefore, the Purusha has something as Purushartha. Bhoga, power, artha is Purushartha. It is serving the other one. And why it is for the other one? One of the factors is that it is because it is assembly. Anything that is an assembly of so many parts is never for itself. Assembly of something is always for someone else. Say, for instance, automobile car assembly is not for itself to be taking a ride in it, but it is for someone else to take a ride. Any machine is assembly of so many components, so many parts, because it is not for itself. And it is definitely for someone else. The Swami Swa classification which you have seen earlier. So there is a master for whom it is meant. So Chitta is collocation of so many parts. It is not an aspect by itself. It is assembly of so many parts. That is saṃhatyakāritvāt. So that is being mentioned now here. Chitta is assembly of so many things. And then it has vichitra vasanas, klesha vasana, karma vasana, phala vasana, all kinds of vasanas from time without beginning. And therefore, it is for someone else and not for itself. Whereas in Buddhism, that someone else is not there, therefore it is for itself only according to their postulation. So that's why this sutra, they have to understand the background, why the topic is gaining importance. And why Patanjali is giving importance to it. It is because of the opponents who are non-Atmic philosophers. They don't believe in anything, entity as Atma. Okay.
So let's begin with Vyasa's Bhashya. So Vyasa says, Tad etat chittam asaṅkhyeyavāsanābhiścitramapi eva chitrīkritamapi parārthaṃ parasya bhogapavargarthaṃ na svārthaṃ saṃhatyakāritvāt gruhavat. So some of it is the same terms used in the sutra. So essentially he's saying this chitta made up of innumerable vasanas and variegated vasanas, it is parārtha for something else, which means parasya bhoga apavargartham, means for another's bhoga, another's experience, another's apavarga. Apavarga is the going towards moksha or kaivalya, going away from bhoga and experience. So it is both for experience and for liberation, as we say, but of something else. Na svārthaṃ, not for itself. Why? Saṃhatyakāritvāt, because it is, like was mentioned, it is an assembly of parts working together. Gruhavat, like a house. Now, to understand this, we have to understand how in the system of logic, Nyaya, inference is usually represented. Now in the Nyaya Shastra, here there is a shorter form of the sentence. In the Nyaya Shastra, it is known as a Panchavayava Vakyam. A Vakya, so the formal structure of establishing an inference contains 5 parts. The 5 parts are Pratignya, Hetu, Drishtanta, Upanaya and Nigamanam. So for example, like we say, wherever there is smoke, there is fire, we say that. So let's say one has to infer that there is fire on the hill because there is smoke. Now, if this has to be formally expressed, you say, Parvato Vanniman Dhumatvat. So the hill has fire because Dhumavatvat, because it has smoke. Then to establish it, where is the reasoning coming from? You say, Yo Dhumavan Savanniman Yatha Mahanasaha. That is to say that, as we all know, whatever has smoke has fire, similar to the stove or the furnace, the stove in the kitchen or the furnace. So that is a drishtanta, an example. That is the third part. So the first part is pratignya, parvato vanniman. The hill has fire. Second part is hetu, dhumavatvat. What is triggering this inference? That is hetu, dhumavatvat, because it has smoke. Then drishtanta, Okay, what is the basis? It says whatever has smoke has fire, just like the stove in the kitchen or the furnace. So yo dhumavan savanniman yatha mahanasaha. Then upanaya tatha cha ayam. This hill is of that type, which means this hill is one with smoke. Then last nigamanam tasmat tatha. Therefore, it has fire. So this is a well accepted formalization, and it avoids then having to get into circles based on how things are expressed. So similarly, here it is said, chittam parārthaṃ na swartham saṃhatyakāritvāt gruhavat. So the graham, which means the house, is an drishtanta, an example here. So as we have seen, everything that is made up of parts and works together, like a house or a piece of furniture or anything else, or a machine or a cart, it is always for something else. Now, chitta is made up of parts, therefore it has to be for something else. So that is the anumana prakriya, the way of inference, which was established by all schools. So this is not specific to yoga or the orthodox schools, or it is not something that the Buddhistic philosopher will not accept, etc. So this process of inference involving the, as we know, such is such, and this also has that quality, therefore it has to be so. That way of framing is accepted, and particularly in the when dealing with people of a significantly different school, one cannot rely on agama. One cannot rely that, oh, it is said in the shastras, in the Vedas, because they are not of the same school and they may not give the same importance. They may not accept the authority of agama, and therefore here they have to take recourse to the process of inference and the formalization of how inference is expressed. So it is said chitta is an assembly of parts, therefore it is for something else. Yatha gruhavat, just like a house. So this is some background we need to have to be able to quickly understand how it is being done. Saṃhatyakārina chittena na swarthena bhavitavyam. The chitta, which is an assembly of parts working together, it cannot function for itself. Now further elaboration. Na sukachittam sukhartham, na jnanam jnanartham, ubhayam api etat parārthaṃ. A chitta that is sukha, it is not for its own sukha. A chitta that has jnanam, like viveka, khyati, etc., the ultimate jnanam, it is not for the chitta itself. Etat parārthaṃ, it is for something else. Yascha bhogena apavargena cha arthena arthavan purushaha sa eva paro na paras samanya matram. Now this is another interesting point. Here Vyasa is saying yahacha, so whatever, that other entity, which bhogena apavargena cha arthena, with a purpose of bhoga or apavarga, experience or liberation. Arthena, arthavan, one who has that, whom the purpose is for, which is the Purusha. That Purusha itself is the para. When we say parārthaṃ, which is not for self, it is for another entity. What is that another entity? Vyasa is saying it is the Purusha. So eva paraha, na paras samanya matram. The para is not some common term that is saying, oh, something else, but it is this specific Purusha. Now, why does this have to be said? This has to be said because, again, as we have seen, while pratyaksha has the aspect of illumining the viśeṣa, the pratyaksha brings an individual into the focus because we are directly perceiving a specific thing, a specific entity, a specific individual. Anumanam, inference on the other hand, it is not viśeṣa para, it is samanya para. Means anumanam does not reveal an individual, it reveals a class. It can say, okay, it is not for itself, it is for another. But anumanam by itself doesn't say which another, which specific individual. So that viśeṣa the above argument, one might say, was not entirely complete because it only said the chitta does not act for itself but for another. So Vyasa then further adds, he says, that another that is being referred to here, it is the Purusha. Okay, which Purusha? What Purusha? That Purusha, yascha, bhogena apargena cha arthena arthavan. That Purusha, with respect to that chitta, the one who is that Purusha for whose purpose it is to have the bhoga and apavarga in question, that Purusha is the para in the term parārthaṃ. So when you say chitta does not act for itself but for another, Vyasa is saying that another is that Purusha whose purpose is served. What purpose? Bhoga and apavarga. Now Vyasa says, yattu kinchit param samanya matram swarupena udaharet vainashikaha tat sarvam saṃhatyakāritvāt parārthaṃ eva syāt. They're saying, but if somebody is not accepting this and he is referring to some, he may accept that chitta is parārtha, but says that para is again something else of the, something like the chitta. So another, some other entity other than the Purusha, which is again a material entity. So para samanya matram, if somebody takes that stand, we said that stand is not valid because that is also saṃhatyakāri. That is also an assembly of parts. It is a material entity made up of parts. And then one can then ask, okay, then what is its functioning for? Then the Vainashika will point to a third thing. Then we'll say, okay, that is also made up of parts. What is the functioning of it for? So any material entity of this type cannot be the ultimate one for whom the purpose is. And then you fall into an infinite regress. So that reasoning is flawed, says Vyasa. Because that is also saṃhatyakāri. And therefore, when we say parārthaṃ, not for itself, we have to accept another entity, which is not a material entity, which is not made up of parts, which is nitya, etc. Nitya meaning eternal and so on, and that is the Purusha. So yastu asau paro viśeṣaha sa na saṃhatyakāri Purusha iti. So therefore this para in the term parārthaṃ, that specific para which is paro viśeṣaha, that is a type of entity which is not saṃhatyakāri, which is not an assembly of things like an assembly of vasanas. So it is not an assembly of things. So the Purusha is not constituted of other things. It is not an assembly of things. It is what is sometimes referred to as a monad. It is a single entity and a metaphysical entity. It is not a normal material entity. So that paro viśeṣaha na saṃhatyakāri, not being assembled of other things, that is the Purusha. And therefore it is clear, says Patanjali and then Vyasa, that even through the process of reasoning, which is common ground between Vainashikas, etc., and the Darshanikas like the Yoga, Sankhya, Vedanta, etc., the same process of reasoning also leads to the conclusion that there has to be a nitya, asaṃhatyakāri Purusha, whose purpose is served by the activity of the chitta. So that is Sutra 4.24 and its Bhashya.
So the position of Patanjali becomes more and more clear and gets reinforced. And therefore, he has also brought a prima facie view of an opponent. So when it is parārthaṃ, the Buddhists postulate that it is parārthaṃ for someone else, that someone else could be not Vishesha but Samanya, not Purusha as the Vishesha entity, but even Chitta, because that means the Uttara Chittam. Because if you recall, we had taken that example of chain of Chittas, and the previous Chitta is meant for the subsequent Chitta and the following Chitta, etc. So that is set aside here. that it is not proper to mention that if it is for others, that other is of the same class and same entity, it should be some other entity, diametrically opposite entity, such as sentient principle. So that's how he has reinforced his position. And the saṃhatyakāritvāt has been explained with the analogy of house. The house is not meant for itself to be residing in it. It is, however, part of so many things which come together: the metals, the stones, and the cement concrete, the wood, the windows, the doors, and all those various parts, their assembly makes something as a house. Now, the house is not meant for itself to be residing in it. It is for someone, and that someone is the sentient principle, and that is the Purusha Tattva. So is the case of other assemblies such as car and other machines. The car is not for itself, the machine is not for itself, it is for someone else to use, and that someone else has a purpose to use, such as bhogam and apavargasata. So that's how he has made it clear. And if you recall, earlier we had seen how the vasanas are constituted: hetu, phala, ashraya, alambana, saṃhatyakāritvāt. They're coming together. This was discussed on an earlier occasion, if you recall, you should recall. So these are the parts which constitute the locus, the chitta, which is locus of vasana. So it is made up of those parts: hetu, phala, ashraya, alambana. And therefore it is saṃhatyakāri. Therefore it is assembly. Chitta is an assembly. It is not an entity by itself. Many things come together and form the chitta, which is the locus of vasanas. So the saṃhatyakāritvāt also has been explained, and the para, meant for someone else, has been also clearly specified. What is that? The other is Purusha Tattva, and that is why this sutra becomes important to reinforce the position of Patanjali by refuting the position taken by the opponents. Okay.
So this sutra sort of completes discussion of various other points of view regarding the nature of the chitta and the purusha. So it is also useful to look at it together to understand it better. So sort of a revision that you could do by looking at this collection of sutras to understand those points of view, and then how the conclusion is reached, because there is a lot of logical analysis and reasoning, and there is an interlinkage among the sutras. So now we begin with the next one, which is Sutra 4.25, and here the next 10 sutras sort of we commence a look at the journey of the chitta towards kaivalya, culminating in kaivalya. So with that background set, let's start looking at Sutra 4.25. So the sutra says, viśeṣadarśina ātmabhāvabhāvanāvinivṛttiḥ. So we are coming to a certain slight change in track, and now that it is clear that there is a chitta, there is a purusha, what are the natures of that, and how does the cognition happen, how there is the chitti shakti of the purusha, or chitti shakti, which is the purusha, that has an influence on the chitta, and so on. So there is a lot of background that is assumed at this point. And then it says viśeṣadarśina, the one who is able to see the difference between the chitta and the purusha, which means one who has viveka khyati. For such a person, what happens? ātmabhāvabhāvanāvinivṛttiḥ. So there is some specific concept known as ātmabhāvabhāvana, which we will see when discussing the bhashya. But it is specifically, or in brief, ātmabhāvabhāvana refers to the sort of a curiosity, inquisitivity, the desire to know and understand the nature of oneself or nature of the self. So understanding the Atma Astitva and its nature and how it was, how it will be, etc. So that is Atma Bhava Bhavana. Now that Atma Bhava Bhavana goes away once one becomes a viśeṣadarśi, which means one realizes or has the viveka khyati, a direct realization of the distinction between the, like we have seen, Bodhisattva and Purusha, or the Chitta even in its purest form, and the Purusha. So to one who has viveka khyati, the Atma Bhava Bhavana will go away on its own. Atma Bhava Bhavana Vinivṛttiḥ. So this is sort of a first step in the journey towards Kaivalya, but it commences from Viveka Khyati. So that is Sutra 4.25. And we will be seeing the Bhashya, which also is very interesting. So
the other entity of Purusha is a nominal entity. How do we know that it exists? Because it is nominal. So that topic also is indirectly being addressed here. So the conditions such as viśeṣadarśina. See, when the chitta is knowing the objects, what happens to chitta? The chitta starts entertaining attachment, aversion, likes, dislikes, getting pleasures, getting pains, getting sorrows, getting delights. So such things happen when the chitta is cognizing the objects. So therefore, the chitta, presence of chitta can be understood because it starts getting these various emotions and various states and various polarities between attachment and aversion and likes and dislikes and delights and sorrows, etc. And therefore it can be inferred that yes, the chitta is an entity which is experiencing the polarities. But that is with regards to bhoga, purushartha of the nature of bhoga, bhogarthata. But then there is apavargarthata. The reaction of the chitta or the condition of the chitta is totally different. So that helps us infer that the chitta which can know the both, drashta uparakta and drushi uparakta, so when the chitta is engaged in a spiritual pursuit, the viveka sadhana and the viveka heading towards viveka khyati, then the chitta reacts differently. So when we can understand there are objective entities for chitta to get into the experience mode, and by way of getting attachment, aversion, likes and dislikes, etc., pain and pleasures, delights and sorrows, etc., when the chitta is engaged with drushitatva, then it has a different condition. So although the Purusha Tattva is nominal and cannot be pointed out that this is the Purusha, like you can point out this is all Prakriti and Prakriti manifestation. So that is being mentioned here, viśeṣadarśina. For a viśeṣadarśi who is one who is the spiritual path and is going for the spiritual pursuit of Viveka Sadhana and Viveka Jnanam and Viveka Khyati, the chitta has altogether different process. That is Atma Bhava Bhavana Vinivṛttiḥ. So although Purusha Tattva is nominal and not tangible and cannot be pointed out, denoted that this is the Atma Tattva, yet it can be inferred because the Chitta is totally reacting differently than when it reacts to objective entities coming to its attention. It's totally different. That is ātmabhāvabhāvanāvinivṛttiḥ. And that is beautifully explained later by Vyasa. Okay.
So Vyasa begins. Yatha pravrishi tृणाङ्कुरस्य उद्भेदेन तद्बीज सत्ता अनुमीयते तथा मोक्ष मार्गश्रवणेन यस्य रोमहर्षाश्रुपातो दृश्येते तत्रापि अस्ति विशेषदर्शनबीजम् अपवर्गभागेयम् कर्माभिनिर्वर्तितम् इति अनुमीयते. Very nice analogy where he says, just like when it rains, the shoots of the grass begin to sprout, and from seeing that we infer that okay, there were the seeds over here. Similarly, he says, moksha marga shravanena yasya roma harshashrupato drishyete. By hearing about the moksha marga, so hearing about the truths or the teachings or the shastras, etc., referring to moksha, referring to liberation, just by hearing those things, one who has, or when we see that one has this roma harsha ashrupato, which means there is a thrill, there is an exhilaration, and there are tears in the eyes just by hearing about this moksha marga. If we see some such person, then just like we could infer the present existence of the seeds from looking at the shoots of the grass, we can then infer that okay, in this person there is a viśeṣadarśina bijam apavarga bhagiyam. So such a person who gets exhilarated and thrilled and has tears in his eyes just by listening to any let's say whether it is Upanishads or whether it is other shastras, anything about moksha marga, then we can infer that the seed for viśeṣadarśinam or the seed for viveka-khyati, which is apavarga bhagiyam, it is about detachment, disengagement, and going towards liberation. That seed exists in this person, and that can be inferred. Anumiyate. So this is a very sort of insightful line that some people by very nature, by very samskaras, they are such that just by hearing about anything on the moksha marga, there is an internal thrill and exhilaration that comes. Just like we see some people listening to music, they begin dancing, others don't. So there is these things come internally. Similarly, the seed for apavarga, the seed for viśeṣadarśinam can be inferred from these characteristics, says Vyasa. Tasya ātmabhāvabhāvanā svabhaviki pravartate. With such a person, the ātmabhāvabhāvanā, which will be elaborated soon, that naturally exists. On the other hand, yasya abhavat idamuktam. So if that ātmabhāvabhāvanā did not exist, okay, one who does not have that seed, then स्वभावं मुक्त्वा दोषात् येषां पूर्वपक्षे रुचिः भवति अरुचिश्च निर्णये भवति. So as regards those who do not have this seed of being, or seed of viveka khyati, of being thrilled by hearing about moksha marga, about them it is said, says Vyasa, quoting from elsewhere. Swabhavam muktva, by abandoning the existence of the self. Doshat, through error. Yesham purvapakshe ruchihi bhavati. They are more attracted, or they have more of an inclination to the other point of view, purva paksha, to the opposite point of view, which has been discussed so far. So purva pakshe ruchi bhavati, aruchischa nirnaye bhavati, and they have no inclination, no liking towards the actual siddhanta, the actual as has been established, the ātmavāda and so on, but as per the shastras, they are not interested. There is no, they don't have that liking for that. So these are people who do not have that seed of viveka khyati which was mentioned, or seed of viśeṣadarśinam. Okay. So now here the term ātmabhāvabhāvanā was mentioned, that people who have that thrill and exhilaration, they have ātmabhāvabhāvanā. But what is it? So Vyasa says, Tatra ātmabhāvabhāvanā is of this type. Koham āsam, katamaham āsam, kim svit idam, katam svit idam, ke bhavishyamaha, katam va bhavishyama. So there's all these kinds of questions in their mind, the essential questions, as we say. Who was I? How was I? From where is all this? How is all this? What will I be? Or what will we all be? How will we all be? So there is this question about the very nature and existence in the past, present and future of oneself and all this, idam. So that essential question, which is always in the mind, and the desire to know the answers, that is known as ātmabhāvabhāvanā. Sātu viśeṣadarśino nivartate. Now, after the viveka khyati, one who becomes a viśeṣadarshi, all this gets answered, and therefore that goes away. Kutaha, how come? Chittasya eva esha vichitrah parinamaha. So all of this, says Vyasa, is different. It's a sort of a state, a transformation of the chitta itself. All of this. And once the viveka khyati is experienced, or the realization happens, and the eternal nature of the Purusha and the transformative nature of the drishyam, all the seen things, including the chitta, is realized, all these questions go away on their own, because then the eternal, unchanging nature of the Purusha is realized. Purushastu asatyam avidyayam shuddhaschitta dharmaihi aparāmrishtaḥ iti. So they realize that this, once the avidya is gone, then the Purusha is untouched. Purusha is anyway untouched, but for this, the yogi who has viveka khyati, the Purusha then, because of the shuddha chitta dharma, so the chitta has been cleansed when the viveka khyati comes, and the Purusha is untouched by it. As we have seen, tada drishtuhu swarupe avasthanam. So in this case, the Purusha as the Nitya entity is completely realized, and all these questions then go away. Tataha, asya, of this yogi, ātmabhāvabhāvanā kushalasya nivartate. The kushala means a yogi who has come to a certain state, a certain caliber, certain level. At this point, the ātmabhāvabhāvanā goes away, because the nature of the Purusha, the nature of the chitta, and the nature of the entire creation is realized. So tato asya ātmabhāvabhāvanā kushalasya nivartate. So Vyasa has taken us from giving a glimpse of a person who has that seed of going towards viśeṣadarśinam, to the point where those indications that and those seeds also fall away once the realization has happened, because the process of viveka khyati, which is the ultimate in jnanam, answers all these questions, and nothing else really is able to answer these questions completely. And that is what is being put forth here as one step So once Viveka Khyati happens, how does one then go from there to Kaivalya? There are some multiple sutras that will deal with that. And this is one specific important point, which is the ātmabhāvabhāvanāvinivṛttiḥ, that is covered in this sutra and its bhashya.
So, say for instance, when a child is presented its coveted objects, toys, chocolates, cookies, it goes ecstatic. So we can see how the child responds. The face can be telling us that the child is ecstatic because the toys are presented to it, chocolates and cookies and its favorite thing, coveted things are presented to it. The joy can be seen on the face of a child. Similarly, those who are cupid and carnal persons, when their objects, coveted objects are presented, they have that joy. And when those objects are not presented to them, which are coveted, then we see that their anger, exasperation, so the emotions become expressed for us when they get their objects or when they don't get their objects. So, one who is in the spiritual path, it begins with hearing about these mysterious things like Atmava are drashtabhyaha, shrotabhyaha, mantavhyaha, nididhyachtabhyaha, which you have heard often, which is in the Upanishads. So when he is hearing to the transcendent aspects of moksha marga, just hearing about or by inference of moksha marga or hearing about moksha marga, we can see certain expressions on the face. And that is the viśeṣadarśina bijam. Like you heard just now, when there is a rainfall and if the grass comes off from the ground, we infer that there are some seeds, botanical seeds, and that's why the sprout of grass has taken place with the rains. So similarly here, moksha marga shravanena yasya romaharsha ashrupatau drushyate. Because he is spiritually inclined, when he hears about these things, moksha marga and atma vishaya, he starts getting some kind of such sattvic bhava in him. This which is called romaharsha ashrupatau. And therefore he starts getting ātmabhāvabhāvanā. What is that ātmabhāvabhāvanā? That is, who am I? Whence am I? What is all around me? What is going to happen to all this around me? What is going to happen to me? These are spiritual inquiries which a spiritual seeker should be getting. That's the sign of being on a spiritual path. Oham asam, katham aham asam, kim sid idam, katham sid idam, ke bhavishyamaha, katham va bhavishyameti. So these are the inquiries which you should recall we had discussed while dealing with the swadhyaya of niyamas. So this is spiritual inquiry. Yes, there is inquisitiveness for spiritual inquiry. So that becomes a major pursuit in life rather than material pursuit of sensuality and carnality and cupidity. That's not the major purpose in life. But going after these inquiries. So for one who has the viśeṣadarśina bijam starts getting these spiritual inquiries in the mind. And he goes after the necessary inquiry about these things. Now this inquiry will be having vinivṛttiḥ. This has to go. When will it go? When there is some revelation in the form of what is called as viveka khyati, viveka darshanam. So in spiritual path, first there is inquiry. After there is inquiry, some realizations come his way or her way. And when that ultimate realization comes, which is called viveka khyati, then the ātmabhāvabhāvanāvinivṛttiḥ takes place, it goes away. For it to go away, it should come. Not having come, how will it go away? So, ātmabhāvabhāvana comes, and then with viśeṣadarśina, with the viśeṣadarśana of viveka khyati or purusha khyati, purusha jnanam, etc., it goes away. And that's how he is now more inclined to proceed on the spiritual path. He gets onto the track, he gets the momentum to proceed on the path of Kaivalya, which is the spiritual samam bonum in yoga. And for that, there must be viśeṣadarśina bijam. After the bijam, there should be viśeṣadarśina. It is because of we start developing inquiry, etc. With inquiry, etc., he starts getting some revelations. When he gets the final revelation of viveka khyati, then that there is a vinivṛtti, there is a departure of that ātmabhāvabhāvana. So that's how he is now qualified and empowered to get onto the track of Kaivalya Prakriya, Moksha Prakriya. So that is what this sutra is telling us. That means the entity, the nominal entity of Purusha, it does exist, and then it cannot be denoted, pointed out, objectively said that this is Purusha. But then some experience in the spiritual realm starts reflecting in the psyche consciousness of the spiritual seeker, and then he goes into inquiry, and then the inquiry gives him the revelations, and the revelation of the nature of viveka khyati, there is a departure of ātmabhāvabhāvana, the vinivṛtti nature. So that is what this sutra is telling us. Okay.
Let's stop for today and continue next time. Let's recite the slokas in Guruji and then the session. Vaijñānikam pravaktritva आसनेषु कलाविदम् योगाभ्यासे च तत्त्वज्ञम् वन्देऽहं सुन्दरं गुरुम् योगवृक्षो हि लोकेऽस्मिन् यत्प्रेरणेन वर्धितः योगाचार्यगुरो तुभ्यं सुन्दराय नमो नमः. Thank you.
Namaskar all of you.